Oh my god. Is she going? She's going. Oh my god. Ah! Okay. How do we feel? Do we like it? Do we dislike it? Well, you better like it because I paid a lot of money for it. I cannot believe we're recording on a real camera right now. This is a moment for me. I don't know how to use a camera, so if you have problems with how I'm lit or how I sound, let me know, just nicely. I'll do my best to fix them. But hello, trying to stay on topic. So today, continuing with Jay's booktube girly era, I have a follow-up video to make. A whole year ago, when I was in Ecuador, I asked you all to send me some recommendations for books that could help with my in-progress NaNoWriMo project. And I read most of those recommendations. And even though it's extremely late, I still have a notes file with all of my feelings for each of those books. And you know, my friends won't take my calls anymore, so I figured I could share those thoughts with you. So this is a themed reading wrap-up video for you guys. So I asked for recommendations that fit under 4 themes. I asked for books about, what did I say? It's murder, love story, cannibalism, revolution. There we go. Okay, so I asked for books that fell into one or more of the following themes. I wanted murderous girlies, a love story where one person is deceiving the other, specifically in a espionage sort of situation. I wanted more of an enemies to lovers sort of vibe and not like a stalkery sort of vibe. Cannibalism and a revolution. Those are the 4 categories. I have my notes up here. Another super pro that I'm really excited to implement is that now I can reference my phone when I'm filming rather than having to go off of memory. This is so exciting. Okay, these are my real notes that I took while reading the book. So the first one was A Woman Eating. This was about a vampire just trying to live her ordinary best life while not being put away for murder. She cannot eat normal food. She survives by feeding off of pig's blood, which is a poor substitute. And just kind of like about her life, trying to live as normally as possible. Let me see what I wrote. I forgot that I wrote that. I wrote, I liked it, but it also made me a little sleepy. I liked the ending though. The ending really bumped it up to 4 stars for me. I can expand on that. The vibe of the book was a little sleepy. The main character was quite melancholy. I felt like I was reading like an old Victorian novel, except it was set in modern day. I'm like reading about a woman watching mukbang videos because that's like her substitute for eating real food. It was a weird juxtaposition. Not one that I disliked, but it was conflicting whether or not I vibed with it. I vibed with it at a solid 3-star sort of way. I believe that the ending of the book, I have a feeling she murders someone. This was a rare case though of like the ending really changing my rating. It's been a while, so it's been over a year, but I think that the ending was that at the end of the book she murders someone and like drinks their blood, and then she feels like this rush of energy and life, and suddenly she just feels so revitalized, and she just embraces like her identity as a vampire. She embraces a new will to live now that she has gotten over her qualms of murdering people. This is probably the first time that an ending really improved my impression of a book. If I go through 50% of a book thinking it's a 3-star read, usually that's how I will end my impression of the book, or in most cases, my rating will go down by the end, which is why I'm very pro DNF. But this was a rare case of it working out in the opposite favor, so I was very pleasantly surprised by that. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It's well documented on the channel that I love me a murderous woman. And the next book was Sweet Pea, which I feel like was submitted for just a category of murderous woman. She doesn't eat people. I didn't finish it. I hate to say it, but I didn't like the main character because she's kind of an asshole, but I don't know what I expected from a murderer. I like a murderous girly who would slaughter my enemies, but I don't like a murderous girly who would like make fun of people for no reason, you know? I like a little righteous anger behind my murder. I DNF'd this one. It just personally wasn't the vibe I was looking for. Daughters of Izdihar. This was my first 5-star read. I actually just published a video, which is a one-off book review of Daughters of Izdihar. It's an elemental fantasy set in kind of like a fantastical Egypt, or at least inspired by Egyptian history. It is kind of like Avatar: The Last Airbender, but like with like heavy themes of feminism. I loved everything about it. I love the elemental magic. I feel like anything with elemental magic will just be compared to Avatar. And certainly there are a lot of similarities in the magic system, but I still think it carves out its own space in the fantasy genre, especially from a world building lens. And the characters are totally different from like the character development in Avatar. I also really love that. There's also like a little bit of like a messy interpersonal relationship that I kind of fuck with too. This was submitted under the category for revolution. The only qualm I had with it at the time was that I was expecting a revolution and I got literally all of the build-up leading up to the revolution. But as a story, I loved it. I have no complaints. I highly recommend it. Murder Your Employer. I rated this 3 stars. This was a little savage. I wrote a lukewarm 3-star experience the whole way through. No escalation of stakes. Aside from my desire to know how it ended, I was bored. So I feel kind of bad because this book just wasn't given its best chance to succeed. Like, I was reading this on vacation, and I don't know if you've ever tried to cross a street in Hanoi, Vietnam, but I wouldn't recommend doing it with headphones in. It really wasn't the vibe to be listening to like an academic, like British narrator as I'm trying to weave in and out of a busy like Asian metropolis. I just couldn't. It was just competing vibes. I do stand by the issues I had. The only reason why I wanted to finish it was because I wanted to know how it ended. There was always the question of, will the main character actually go through with murdering his former boss? And I couldn't tell like from the tone of the book, like which direction would it go? Would it go in the direction of him being noble or whatever and not murdering him, or actually going through and exacting his version of justice? I just couldn't tell which tone the book would take, and so I was genuinely curious. However, the whole 300 whatever pages leading up to it was so boring. There was nothing else exciting happening in the book. And I actually got so irritated that I literally just skipped to the last chapter, read that, and then I just kept going back to the previous chapter in the previous chapter just until I got my question answered, and then I was satisfied with my reading journey. I did not feel the need to keep reading. It just wasn't my vibe. I don't know. And by this point I had a lot of murder. Tender is the Flesh. This was also a cannibalism recommendation. Y'all came through with the cannibalism recommendations. Y'all really showed up for the cannibalism. So this is Tender is the Flesh. It's a dystopian world where the lore is unclear, but basically there is a virus that infected all animals and plants, but somehow didn't infect humans. But the end result was that the only source of food for humans was other humans. And so we follow kind of like the production of like raising humans for slaughter as if they are livestock. I wrote, the vibes, the lore, the cannibalism. The ending haunts me. Like, I need a moment of silence to process it. I remember really liking this book. I rated it 5 stars. Nervous to stand by that rating because a couple of weeks later I saw the title of a YouTube video where another content creator I really like was absolutely ripping the book to shreds. I didn't watch that video because I didn't want like my opinion to be colored, but knowing that like someone I respect dislikes this book, it makes me really anxious. But I really liked it, at least from the reading experience. I found the world that we were setting up really fascinating. It was uncomfortable to have to like address like, hey, like, so you're still eating meat, huh? You know, seen through the eyes of fiction. I liked the world building. I liked how disturbed I was by it. I also liked just like little additional implications. For example, because other animals carry this like supposedly infectious disease, which forced people to like quarantine away from them. Humans don't have like the same like relationship to animals anymore. There's a scene where these kids are just like brutally beating up a dog. As a dog lover, that was like truly horrific. And it was disturbing to see like a world where like an adorable furry animal is not treated the way that I'm used to it being treated, you know? It was disturbing to see like a dog not be able to cash in its pretty privilege. That was something that made an impact on me. And the ending truly disturbed me in ways I don't really feel like getting into, but if you know, you know. I I like the experience of reading the ending. I didn't see it coming. After the book ended, I needed a moment of silence. And I liked that I got that emotional impact from a book. I was also recommended The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson, submitted under Love Story with Deceit and Revolution. I'd already read The Final Empire a few years ago. I really liked it, but it was still a good reread. It reminded me how much I love Brandon's female characters. And for a bulky fantasy book, I still found the lore and the story itself very accessible. I feel with my attention span, high fantasy with multiple characters, multiple pieces, really intimidates me. But once I get into a Brandon Sanderson novel, I just feel very invested. I knew this already, so did you, but Final Empire was a 5 out of 5. Next, I read Chain Gang All-Stars. It's pitched almost as a more realistic Hunger Games, where within the US prison system, convicts have the opportunity to gain fortune, better living conditions, and even early release if they agree to compete in a televised battle royale. It's the sporting event in the country. Everyone's watching it, everyone's obsessed with it, and you're following the people who have chosen this life for themselves and are hoping to one day make it out on the other side. I wanted to like this book more than I did. I really loved the world building, but I felt at some point it was only world building and no escalation of stakes. I just kind of felt I was there for the vibes until the very end. The ending both confused me and also kind of left me a little disappointed. It left me with a feeling of helplessness. I don't know, I would have liked at least something a little bit more explosive for the ending, and then maybe there's an epilogue where everything just went back to normal business as usual. That could have maybe captured that same feeling of hopelessness, but also gave some sort of charge to the ending. It's, the author's intent was to convey a feeling of helplessness because this is supposed to mirror the American prison system, then, he definitely accomplished that. And I think I would have received the ending better if I didn't feel I had a middle of the road sort of experience the whole time I was reading it. Next book was Necroscope, which I was told was not for the weak of stomach, and I ended up DNFing this before I got to anything gross. I'm sorry. I would say that by this point, I was kind of tapped out of cannibalism. By this point, I kind of had a lot of vampire cannibalism. I just felt I needed to move on. An elderly lady is up to no good. Same kind of vibes as Sweet Pea, just kind of a funny story about an old lady who unapologetically murders people and using people's perception of her to her advantage. I thought it was fun, but it was just okay. I finished it simply because I knew I could in 3 hours. And finally, the last book I read for this venture, it was kind of a late entry, but this video was hella late anyway, so I added it to the list, was Babel. This was submitted for the revolution aspects. Babel follows a fictionalized version of Oxford, where a young Chinese immigrant who is ripped away from his home at an early age grows up to study translation at Oxford University and is trained in the art of silver working, which is a type of magic that is rooted in translations. I love the translation lore. I love the progression of the main character Robin's life from a sick adolescent who is whisked away to Britain from his birth country, growing up with a caretaker who doesn't love him and only sees his potential as a translator, to his college years, which are a very complicated time for him, where he meets what could be his lifelong group of friends, to basically starting a revolution. And it was so good. It was so good. I wrote, I loved everything about it. The translation lore, the progression of Robin's life from childhood to university to the end, the college friend group vibes, the heartbreaking foreshadowing, the murder, because there's murder too. Robin's growth as a person, Letty as an antagonist, white women feminism. I really love this book. I still think about it. 5 out of 5 stars. I would highly recommend it. Okay, and that is it. Those are all the books that I read. Okay, so I thought it would be fun to kind of give an award for best of each category. So for the first category of murderous woman, I think that my favorite recommendation has to be, let's look at the list again. Let's see, who's gonna be in the running is a good question. Okay, so if we're choosing between Sweet Pea, Murder Your Employer, Chain Gang all stars, and an elderly lady is up to no good. I think I'm gonna give it to, I think it's gotta be an elderly lady is up to no good. I think she just is the murderous girly energy that this prompt wanted. You know, she murders and she doesn't give a singular fuck about your feelings or your life. Second category, which is a love story full of deceit and betrayal. Well, there's only one entry for this, and it is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. So congratulations, Brandon. Like I said, I like the way Brandon does characters, and I like the way he does romance with those characters. You know, like a straight romance that I like is hard to find. There's just not many good ones out there. I'm kidding. Moving on to cannibalism, the stackiest of stacked categories. Up on the docket, we have a woman eating, tender as the flesh, Necroscope. Oh, maybe it's not that stacked of a category. Basically down to tender as the flesh and a woman eating. Tender as the flesh, just based off of vibes. The ending is still horrific to me. I will say that I'm curious what would happen if I reread these books. Maybe I was just in a different mood when I rated each of these. I'm just going off of what I remember my emotions being at the time, but my emotions could be totally different. It was only a 1-star difference between them when I finished them both. But we're gonna give it to Tender as the Flesh. Congratulations on winning the cannibalism gauntlet. And moving on to our final category, Viva la Revolution, baby. We got Daughters of Izdihar. Let's say Chain Gang All Stars is in there. It definitely needs a revolution. And Babel. You know, I hate to say it because I love Daughters of Izdihar. You are absolutely the reigning champion of this entire list. Not just for your category, but for the entirety of the selection. And then Babel just swooped in at the final hour and absolutely like steamrolled over you. I'm so sorry, Daughters of Izdihar, but it's Babel. It hit, and it hit so hard. I will say, Daughters of Izdihar is more fun, especially if you're kind of just like in the mood to like read about some feisty, strong women. But Babel hit hard. Babel came in like a wrecking ball and wrecked my feelings. Okay, and that was it. That was the official rankings. Those were the official winners of the reading wrap-up. Congratulations. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was worth the wait. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate you being here, and I hope to see you in the next video. All right, let's stop before my camera overheats.